Good day everyone. Today we are going to have a small introductory webinar on artificial intelligence and deep learning. I am Binoy Nair and I will be the speaker for the session. I have been working in the area of deep learning and machine learning for past 10 to 12 years. And my major areas of work include applications of machine learning or artificial intelligence in things such as condition monitoring of machines, in advanced driver assistance systems such as automated lane assist, finding the condition of the drivers, and things like identifying speed bumps, etc., are some of the works that I have been involved in. And I am also working on three different grants. That means I have been funded by Government of India. I'm working on another project by National Instruments, and there is another one which is by IBM. And in all three of these projects that you are seeing on the current screen, I make extensive use of machine learning and deep learning to come to the conclusions that are required. So first let's start with the basic idea of what is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence as a paradigm actually came into being around 1940s, 1950s. At that time, it was a very far-fetched concept. It existed mainly in the theoretical realm, and people were only thinking about what would happen if machines were able to behave like human beings. That was only the thought process, and as computational power increased, you came up with more and more powerful computers. Things begins to improve. So we see in 1980s more and more applications of artificial intelligence algorithms coming in. We come up with a totally new branch of computer science, or mathematics, if you want to say it that way, which is called machine learning. So these are algorithms which can extract patterns out of data. So you can find examples like what you saw in earlier email accounts. That means you were able to see the mails getting automatically segregated. You were able to see things like automated recommendations coming up. So that is one example where machine learning kind of started out. And now we have a great boom in the next level of artificial intelligence, which is called deep learning. So as we move closer and closer to true artificial intelligence, you will find more and more applications of deep learning. What does actually deep learning mean? Deep learning is the idea of using data to help machines identify objects and do things which were previously thought to be impossible. Some of these elements in these slides, I would like to tell you that some of the elements that you are seeing on the slide has been taken from the literature that has been put forward by NVIDIA, the same people who make graphics cards for your game laptops. So they also do a lot of work in machine learning, and their hardware is perhaps the most important um, tool that has actually driven deep learning to this level, and maybe has democratized deep learning to this level. Where do you actually find deep learning? That is the next question. So you can find deep learning everywhere. Basically, you are able to see deep learning on your daily YouTube video, because all the recommendations that YouTube gives you are generated automatically. Nobody is sitting in the background trying to generate recommendations for you. All the YouTube videos uh, that you see with subtitles, the subtitles are automatically generated. There is nobody sitting there typing subtitles for you. And several such applications. You can see the sentiments that they are able to identify. Machine is automatically able to identify what is your sentiment, etc. I'll show you an example later on. That is also possible. And in the medical field, you will find applications such as 3D visualization. Scientists and doctors are now able to visualize human tissue in ways that were impossible some years ago. So you have artificial reconstruction of the 3D structure of how a human body part looks like. So if you have a disease, or if you have some kind of an infection, machine learning will help you identify that a lot faster. Then you again go into things like security and defense, where automated detection algorithms work to find out if some abnormal event has occurred in your bank account, like somebody has been trying to withdraw money, which is not the usual practice that you follow. In all those conditions, you will be getting an alert automatically before the transaction is executed. So this kind of prevents a lot of what you may say phishing attacks from being successful. You also save a great deal of money by employing software agents to do this background work for you, rather than manually going through each and every transaction and trying to find out where this attempt at stealing money has happened. So it helps the bank also, it helps the customer as well. So you have a lot of applications right there. And you may have also seen cases where video surveillance applications are also being used. China is one such country where you will find lot of application of video surveillance happening. You can identify if a person is breaking the law by crossing the street when the light is not green, if he is running a red light. All these things can be identified by looking at the video. You can pinpoint the person who has been doing this. Next application that you can think of is in autonomous driving. Autonomous driving is a very popular concept which is kind of nearing more and more to fruition in the recent past. You will find cars like Tesla and Rivian who are actually trying to bring this concept to the field. Tesla allows limited autonomous mobility. There are several other players also in this field who help accelerate the process of this particular concept. You will find Google's Waymo and other such players who are in the field trying to develop autonomous driving vehicles. Full autonomy has several other legal issues also associated with it. That is why you will not be seeing them in very near future, but we are very close to it. So what can deep learning do actually? I'll just show you an example of that. What you're seeing on the top is actually a photograph of our campus. This is Amrita Coimbatore campus. There is one small part that has been photographed. And what we are doing here is I am taking this photograph and I am feeding it into my deep learning algorithm or my artificial intelligence algorithm. So my AI algorithm takes in this image, and then I also decide how I want this image to look like. So what I do is I have taken an image from one of the most famous painters of the past couple of centuries, let's say Vincent van Gogh, and one of his paintings is called Cypresses. So what I have done is I have taken this photograph and I want my photograph to look like a painting in the style of Van Gogh's Cypresses. So I feed both of these images into my deep learning algorithm. My deep learning algorithm has not seen either of these two images. So what I tell my deep learning algorithm is, here is the photograph and here is the style that I want it to be converted into. And the deep learning algorithm automatically converts this photograph into a painting in the style of Vincent van Gogh. So you do not have to paint anything, you just take a photograph, tell it what style it should convert into, and it gets converted into that particular style. If you look at this, the trees and other things are almost faithfully reproduced as paintings. So this is how useful artificial intelligence can be. These are just like small fun parts. We will go into more detailed things later on. It can also tell you how old you are, what you are feeling right now. These kind of things are like very small implementations that we have tried out, but they actually make a lot of difference. So if you have a customer who's coming into your shop and the system automatically detects that he is unhappy when he is leaving, then you can actually ring back to that customer and find out why he has left unhappily. So all this can be automated. You do not need people to do this. There are privacy related concerns, obviously, but this is one possible application where you can find out what your customer needs, or maybe what the emotions are and what the emotions should be. So you can assess the response of customers, you can assess the response of viewers. If you are making a film and you want to assess how the customers or how the viewers are feeling, you can just put a webcam in front of them and record their observations. Machine will automatically tell you how they have felt at different parts of the movie. So that makes your task a lot more easier as a director or as a producer. The next application that you will find is actually taken from NVIDIA's website itself. This is an example of pose estimation and what pose estimation can actually do. You can create avatar like movies with very little amount of work. Please keep in mind this is a video directly taken from NVIDIA's website.
Hey, can we rotate the flag to get some light on it? Nice.
Right, so this is a fun way of describing what the whole process was about. It is something called real-time ray tracing. That is one technology that has been pioneered by NVIDIA. And another important thing is that of pose estimation that we have already seen in many cases, like say for example Avatar, where you required people to wear a particular suit and then you had to take their videos and then you have to superimpose another person on them and then to create those creatures that you see in Avatar. But here what you can do is you just take a video just simply, and the system is able to detect what are the key points on the body, and then you can superimpose whatever you want on it. Just like the example you saw, a normal person on a normal stage was performing some actions and they were getting converted into something that was being performed by somebody on the moon. The next major application that is useful or will have far-reaching consequences is the self-walking bipedal robots. This kind of robot is extremely difficult to make, and a lot of effort has to go into developing the intelligence for this kind of motion. Conventional robotics has not been able to make these things work, but when you combine learning with this kind of robotic systems, they are capable of doing a lot of work which even human beings cannot do. So you can see robots jumping, you can see robots moving, they can be used to navigate difficult terrain without much effort, but in addition to the mechanical parts that you are seeing on the robot, there is a lot of artificial intelligence which also goes in. So next application that I would like to show you is that of the self-driving car. This is again a video which I have taken from NVIDIA's website, and this is one very important application that you are already seeing on the roads in US and in Europe. Let's have a look at it and then we'll continue. Can see here that machine is able to identify the cars are there also and the vehicles in front of it just take that right start the car. So you can see this example also that when the vehicle automatically reaches a junction, it stops, it indicates, and then if no vehicle is coming, it will just take off on the top. Again, this video is also courtesy NVIDIA. This is one application where you will find autonomous machines and autonomous systems coming into picture more and more. Another application that you can think of is a lot more common. We can use deep learning or machine learning to identify each and every individual who's actually coming into a meeting. So you can run this when somebody is walking into a meeting. You can use this for taking attendance in the class, maybe. All that is possible. So you can also find out if a person is happy or sad, or if he is supposed to be in the meeting or not supposed to be in the meeting, or if he is supposed to come to the class, has he registered for the class, not registered for the class. All this can be done automatically. So that is just the beginning of what we are seeing, and several other applications are already in the market. You will see a lot of video game AI that is in the market is completely driven by artificial intelligence algorithms. For example, you see video games where at difficulty levels which are higher, you will see that the enemy tries to behave in a way which is different when he is at the lower difficulty level. It tries to dodge more, it tries to behave in a way that you did not expect it to. Or maybe if you have played the game once, when you try to play it, next time the enemy behaves in a different way. This is all not hard coded into the game. The machine is learning, or the algorithm that is inside the game is learning from your behavior and readjusting itself. So that makes the game more engaging and more fun. And you will end up playing it a lot more times than you had actually thought of. So that makes everybody a lot more happier. Second application that I can show here is the case of voice assistants. You see, OK Google, you have Siri, you have Cortana. All these voice assistants make extensive use of deep learning algorithms. That is how they are able to identify your voice, your accent, because most likely your voice will not be similar to the voice that somebody else may be speaking with, or your accent may not be same as that of native English speakers, but still the system is able to understand you. It understands what you are trying to say, and it tries to help you out. So all this is done with the help of deep learning algorithms. One common algorithm which you will find being used for this is called uh, LSTM, long short-term memory models. They are very popular for doing these kind of things, and you will find companies like Flipkart, Amazon, and Snapdeal generating recommendations for you based on your past purchases. This whole concept is called association rule mining, and basically what happens is that these algorithms which run in the background of these e-commerce sites, it kind of tracks all the transactions that have happened, all the people who have bought things from these markets, and tries to find out which things are people likely to buy together. For example, if you buy a brush, you are very likely to buy toothpaste as well. So the system or the algorithm automatically tries to create associations between objects. Please remember that companies like Amazon sell a few million items. Like their inventory is like a few million items. So which items combine with which other item, it's very difficult to find out manually. So machine learning and deep learning algorithms help do this in a very efficient manner without any human intervention. They can do it without any human intervention totally, but there is usually some kind of uh, assistance that is provided by human beings right now. But things are moving to such a location kind of situation where you will not find a lot of human interference in the near future. Another application that you can think of is automated chatbots. Like these are the chat windows that automatically open when you try to log in again to say Flipkart or Snapdeal or Amazon and try to book a complaint. So when you try to book a complaint, a chat window automatically opens. Somebody comes and says, "Hello, I'm going to help you," and all those. Those are not necessarily human beings. They could be algorithms which are programmed to reply to your queries. So that takes out a lot of pressure from engaging call centers and making people uh, to stay in a particular location and answer your queries, etc., etc. So chatbots, it's called chatbot. So chatbots are very popular nowadays. Almost all of the companies which interact with customers employ some form of chatbot to help the customer. So as a part of customer service, they usually employ chatbots. And that's what you see in most of the chat windows. When the first level of chat happens, it is usually with a chat bot and not an actual person. So now we will just go into have a look at what we have done so far at Amrita. This is some of the stuff that I have been doing. If you look at this, this is an example where I'm trying to detect fatigue. So these are my students. This is a normal mobile phone camera which we have mounted on the dashboard, and this is the student who is actually sitting and trying to drive the car. Now what we do is we track the eyes and the mouth of this particular person. As you can see here, using machine learning algorithms, I'm able to pinpoint where the face of that person is and where the mouth of that person is, even when the person is turned, when he's looking in front, when he's smiling, when he's laughing, when he has mustache, does not have a mustache. All those things we have tried out, and by tracking this, we are able to see if the eyes are closed or open, if he's trying to yawn or not. All these things can be identified with the help of machine learning algorithms, and I can predict and I can identify if a person is fatigued or if he is feeling sleepy. So if the person feels sleepy, I can just create a alarm, and the person will have to take some action to stop that alarm from beeping, which will most likely keep him awake for some more time. and this will keep on repeating every time he feels drowsy. So this is one way of helping the driver and helping avoid accidents. The second example that I'm going to show here is that of lane and edge detection. This is again tested in our Amrita Coimbatore campus. As you can see, this is the road that we have on one part of the campus, and there is a bus nearby. And you can see here that the first step that I have done is I have used my deep learning algorithm to segment the road. This is called semantic segmentation, where we can actually segment out road, the edge of the road, and the trees separately. And all the things which are not tree are marked in dark blue. So you can see that the deep learning algorithm is able to see with a reasonable degree of accuracy where the road is, where the road's edge is in light blue, and where the other things are. You can see the trees are in green. So when you convert this into a black and white image for better visualization, you can see the road edges are being marked here. This I use to indicate where the vehicle should be headed. So there is this cross mark. The center of the cross represents the direction the vehicle should take. So my vehicle is right moving in front, and it should actually try to follow this cross. So there's a tracking algorithm which will force the vehicle to go in the direction of this cross, so that we are always in the line. We do not cross the road and go out of the road. Third example that I'm going to show here is that of speed bump detection. This is like a speed hump or bump that you will find on most of the roads. The major problem that you will find with speed bumps is that in some places the speed bumps are marked very well. In some other places speed bumps are not marked very well. In some other places you will find the speed bumps under shade. In the night time sometimes it is difficult to find them. In some cases they are not even marked. In many cases that you will find that speed bumps are not marked at all. So this becomes a challenging thing if you want a vehicle to be driving autonomously. In Europe and US, you will rarely see any speed bump which is not marked. In India, however, the behavior is different. You will find several cases where the speed bumps are either unmarked, poorly marked, or not marked. I mean, or completely constructed in a way that is not correct. So you can see we have actually looked at many possible scenarios, and we can detect speed bumps with the help of our machine learning algorithms. We have used a deep learning algorithm which is called convolutional neural network to do this, and we are able to detect this with a very high degree of accuracy. So you can see we are about a kind of 80 to 90% accurate in most of the cases that this is actually a speed bump. Another application that we have tested out is on detecting road signs. So road markings are another very important aspect of autonomous driving. So you can see here that this is a turn signal, this is a speed limit, and then you have several other conditions like stop, about turn, and several other such things. So detecting road signs is a very important part, because I should be able to know if I should take a turn or what the speed limit is, because if you cross the speed limit you are likely to pay a fine, and you cannot blame the car to get out of this, because car is not driven by you, but still it belongs to you. So if you have an autonomous car which cannot detect speed limits like this 50 kilometers an hour, then it's you who's going to get into trouble. So we have to find some mechanism to do this. That is what we have tried out. One specific thing that we actually found in this particular example when we were trying it out is that the speed signs or the speed limits, not just speed limits, but almost all the traffic signs that we are seeing are not consistent across India. We found a lot of cases where the signs were not consistent. We could find several different variants of the signs for the same type. So this is not usually the case in Europe or in US, because they maintain the standards very well, but here we had that issue. So this study was very important in that sense as well, to identify signs when the signs do not look the same at all times. So that's an important thing that we have worked on. Another application that you can see here is to find out how far away a person is from the camera and what that thing is which is in front of him. So you can see here that I am able to detect the car, person, bike, etc., 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 and I am also able to find out how far away this particular person is. So you can see from the camera starting point or the lens, that particular person is about 337 centimeters away. So we are able to do this again with the help of deep learning algorithms. Another work that we have done includes autonomous navigation. So this is a truck that we have built for automatically harvesting onions. So you can see this is an onion field on the top left, and we have designed a machine which can actually go to the field and pluck the onions and come back without any human intervention. So this was the first trial run that we have tried out, and you can see one of the major steps in that was to segment out the field. So this is your onion field, the one that you saw on the top, and you can see we have used semantic segmentation to correctly identify where the onion field is, where the edge of the field is, and where the sky is. The sky is in yellow, the edge of the field is in purple, and the onion field is in light blue. So what we are trying to do here is trying to make sure that the harvester, this is the onion harvester stays on the edge of the field at all times, does not go out of the field, and does not randomly go around the path, because that will kind of damage the onion crop without helping us much. So what we have planned is that it will continuously track the edge of the field and move like this, and move through the edge all throughout. Next time when it comes, the harvested part will appear to it like a edge, and then it will go into concentric kind of patterns, or it will just go in, and finally it will come to rest at the center of the field. And once that is over, it will automatically drive itself to a pre-designed edge of the field, and then from there we can catch the complete onion which is actually accumulated at the back of this vehicle. We have also added an extra feature to this, which is autonomous kind of path planning. So it actually goes to the edge of the field and it decides from where it has to take a turn. So this is also done automatically using machine learning models. This is another work that we have tried out. What we did is we used a very simple low-cost LiDAR. A LiDAR is light detection and ranging. This is a very useful sensor that is used in autonomous driving kind of applications. There are two schools of thought on this. Some people think that autonomous driving vehicles will require a lot of LiDAR. Some people think that it can be accomplished with the help of only cameras. Tesla uses only cameras. Several other people use both cameras and LiDARs, and some other companies use only LiDARs to do this. LiDAR actually stands for light detection and ranging, and why LiDARs are so useful is because cameras cannot see in the night time, cameras cannot see in fog, cameras cannot see when there is some occlusion that is stopping the camera lens, but LiDARs can see through all these scenarios. So light is not a problem for LiDAR because it is emitting a laser which is detected by the other sensor, and then based on that it tries to find out how far away the object is. Unfortunately, the problem is LiDARs tend to be very expensive. So this LiDAR that you are seeing here is a 1D LiDAR. 1D means one-dimensional LiDAR. It just sends off a ray of laser, and it just tells where one point, or the point of that LiDAR where that laser where it hits, it just tells that distance. So it cannot create any patterns, it cannot create any visualizations, etc. The costlier LiDARs that you will see are kind of priced in excess of 1 lakh. Those kind of sensors can actually create something called a three-dimensional point cloud or 3D point cloud, which basically is a cluster of points which can be used to model or visualize an object in 3 dimensions. These are the things that you are seeing on the left hand side, but these are not created with the help of an expensive LiDAR. I have used just this, which can produce one single point, and I have used it multiple times, and I have augmented it with the help of machine learning algorithms to come up with a 3D model of this particular thing. So what you're seeing on the left hand side is the actual thing, and what you're seeing on the right hand side is the 3D point cloud created from a single 1D sensor. So you can see here, this is a box. It's able to see the box. Two boxes, you're able to see two boxes. These are the walls that you are seeing on the side. So there are reflections from the walls as well. That is what also you're able to see. So these are some of the applications that we have seen so far. And the next important question is, you can do a kind of a lot more than this. There's a lot of other stuff that you can do. Because of lack of time, I'm not able to tell this to you. But the major question that all of you will be having is, how do I get into this? How do I learn more about this? A very simple way of doing this is to build at first proficiency in any one of the programming languages, because most of this deep learning happens with the help of some other programming language, obviously. So if you are comfortable with any proper programming language like MATLAB, Java, C++, or Python, you should be just fine. A lot of the development in machine learning and in deep learning is going on using Python. Java is also a very major language in which a lot of deep learning work is going on. C++ will come in very handy if you are trying to develop deep learning models which need to go into a hardware. So for example, if you want to develop some kind of a deep learning model which has to sit in a mobile phone or which has to sit inside a microcontroller, C++ will be a good option. MATLAB is very easy to use and very easy to work with. So MATLAB is something which you should seriously look at if you are interested in developing deep learning models. And these are some of the frameworks that you see on the left, using which deep learning models are typically developed. So these are like deep learning libraries, just like you have in C++, hash include stdio.h and those kind of things. You have several high-level libraries which can help you code deep learning models very, very quickly. TensorFlow is the most important framework as of today, and you will find Keras and PyTorch being very, very widely used. And if you are interested in starting with machine learning, you will be obviously using scikit-learn, pandas, and numpy a lot. So these pandas, scikit-learn, and numpy are typically used in Python. So you will find all this as Python libraries. And if you're using MATLAB, you don't have to go through any of this. MATLAB provides all of this for you. So you do not need to have separate NumPy interface or pandas or scikit-learn. All this is actually, these things, what these libraries can do can also be accomplished by MATLAB just like that. So these are some of the frameworks that you have to have a look at if you are interested in working with deep learning. Okay, and in most of the deep learning, the underlying principle is that of artificial neural networks. So what artificial neural networks are they are basically the models of human brain. So you have your brain composed of several small units which are called neurons. The artificial neural networks are mathematical models which kind of behave like the neurons in your brain, and that is why these artificial neural networks are capable of so much that you have seen. in the major part of my presentation, the algorithms that you are seeing are based out of artificial neural networks. The larger the neural networks become, the more complicated things they can learn. And what could be the future? That is the major question. So you could have a situation where artificial intelligence becomes too powerful, where it takes over everything and humans become the slaves. Or you can have a situation where you have robots which are becoming more helpful, more assistive type, and they make your life a lot more easier. What is the future going to be? It's anybody's guess, but in very few years we will be able to know where we are actually heading. So with this, I come to the conclusion of my presentation. If there are any questions, I'd be willing to take it now. Thank you.